everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Now today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet the Chunky Bloom Infinity scarf. And the word infinity just means it doesn't end, so it's basically a circle scarf. And the really cool thing about this pattern is you can make it as long as you want to, and you can also make it as wide as you want to. If you like a shorter cowl or a wider cowl, it's super easy to adjust. We're also going to make this cute little bow that adds just a perfect little touch to our cowl. Now, this is a super easy pattern. What makes this cowl extra beautiful is this yarn that I'm going to use today. This is the Premier Bloom Chunky, and it's a self-striping floral print. And what happens is it makes these beautiful stripes of color, and then it also looks like you've got some flowers with leaves in there. This particular color is called hydrangea. This is a chunky number 5, and we'll talk more about supplies, but I wanted to let you know about this beautiful yarn. And remember, anytime I make a project using a certain yarn, you can always use substitute yarns in the same weight, but the colors that you enjoy. You can find that free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that down in the notes underneath this video. To make this chunky cowl, you're going to need about 3.5 ounces of a number 5 chunky yarn. And as I stated earlier, I'm using this yarn, Premier Bloom Chunky, self-striping floral print. Now they have other prints as well that are just lovely, and you don't have to use this yarn. You can use any color, striping, solid, variegated, as long as it's a chunky number 5 yarn. And you'll need 3.5 ounces. We're going to be stitching today with an L hook. The L is an 8mm crochet hook. I'm using this plastic hook because my favorite set doesn't have an L hook in it. And it's real important that we use an L today. Like I said, 8mm crochet hook. Make sure you have a needle that has a nice big eye so we can weave in our ends and attach our bow and get that thick yarn through the eye of that needle. And of course, you'll also need your scissors. To make our Chunky Bloom Infinity scarf, we're going to need to stitch 120 foundation single crochets. We'll start with our slip knot, and we'll chain 2, 1 and 2. To make the foundation single crochet stitches, you'll go in that second chain, pull up a loop, yarn over and only go through that first loop, then yarn over and go through both loops. Then you'll go through that chain that you made, pull up, yarn over and only go through the first loop, yarn over and go through the second loop. I'm not going to be stitching 120. I'm going to be stitching 40. And I'm going to just make a swatch to show you how to do the cowl. Now, if you don't want to do the foundation single crochets, you can do a chain that is 120 chains long. Join your chain in a circle, and then stitch 1 single crochet in each of those chains around, and then join to your first stitch. The reason that I prefer to use this single crochet foundation is because it gives you a nice stretchy edge for your cowl, and it is quite simple to do. You just go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and only go through that first loop. That's your chain. Now we're going to yarn over and go through both loops. That's our single crochet. All right, so you can either do 120 foundation single crochets, or you can chain 120 chains join in a circle, and then stitch 120 single crochets. The bottom line is you need 120 single crochets for row 1. Once you've stitched your 120 foundation single crochets, you're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch to make a loop for your infinity scarf. And remember, I'm using a swatch of 40 stitches. You need 120. All right, we're going to chain 1. Now, for row 2, whether you did it making a chain and join and all single crochets, or you did foundation single crochet, from here on out, the pattern is exactly the same. You're joined to your first single crochet, chain 1. We're going to skip the next single crochet. We're going to chain 1 and stitch in the back loop a single crochet. Chain 1. Now, if you look at your stitches on the top, you'll see that you have loops on this side and loops on this side. The loops that are facing you are the front loops. The loops that are facing away are the back loops, and we're going to be stitching in the back loops only for this row. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. And that's our repeat for row 2. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch. And we'll do this all the way around our cowl. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next stitch, and repeat all the way around, and then we'll join back to that first single crochet. This is the way it looks on the front. This is the way it looks on the back. You'll notice that those loops will form just a little bit of a line across the front where we didn't stitch in those front loops. Once you have completed row 2, and again you're going to have 120 stitches, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1, skip 1, all the way around. And when you get to the end of that row, you're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and chain 1. And then what you're going to do is you're going to repeat row 2 8 more times. So you'll have 9 rows of your in-between rows, and 2 rows equal approximately an inch. Repeat row 2 8 more times, and then we're going to put a trim on it, and that's going to give you about a 5-inch wide cowl. So if you want your cowl even wider, you can add as many rows as you would like. For the written pattern as it's written, we're going to be repeating row 2 8 more times. So I have repeated row 2 8 more times. So I have my row where I started with my single crochet foundation or foundation single crochet, and then my 7 rows, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, plus this one, which is 8, and this one is 9. So this is 9 rows, and you can look at this and see if you want to make your cowl wider or not. I like it this wide, and I think it's perfect. All right, so the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to just put a row of single crochet in every stitch around, just to give it a nice finished edge. So I completed up through my 9th row. I joined to my first single crochet and chained 1. And what we're going to do for row 10 is just stitch a single row of 1 single crochet in each stitch. So we'll go in and stitch a single crochet, then we'll go in the stitch. And we're not doing back loop only anymore. We're just going through the regular top of the way we do a single crochet. Now, if you're not sure where to put your stitches, if you look at the top of your work, you'll see that there are those loops. Well, what you're going to do is make sure that you put a single crochet in each of those sets. That way you don't accidentally miss one of the chain 1 spaces or one of the stitches. All right, so we'll just go in and stitch a single crochet in each of those stitches, working all the way around the edge of our cowl. And again, you're going to have 120 single crochets because our stitch count didn't change at all on this cowl. All right, so again, follow those sets of stitches on the top and make sure you put 1 single crochet in each of those stitches. This is going to give us a nice edge for our cowl and help it hold its shape. So 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. Then we'll join back over here where we started this row and tie off. I've stitched a single crochet all the way around the edge of my cowl. I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. I'm going to cut my yarn and check this out. That's the last of that skein. Yarn chicken winner. Alrighty, let's go in the next stitch, pull that loop to the inside, and then we'll tie that off. All right, now let's grab our needle. Remember, we needed one with a nice big eye. And we'll go ahead and weave this in to the inside. Try to go through some stitches and some fibers of the yarn. And when you have a bigger eyed needle, it's a little bit more blunt on the end. And so it makes it a little bit of a struggle to get through some of those yarns. So just be careful and get through there and make sure you get that attached securely. All right, now before we go to making the bow, we do need to take care of this end where we started. If you did the single crochet foundation or foundation single crochet, we need to address this end as well. But you're going to have an end you're going to have to weave in whether you used option 1 or option 2 to begin. And so we want to go ahead and take care of that as well. I like to make a loop and go through to make sure the ends are together. And then I'll just go ahead and weave that in. And that's going to make our scarf look nice and tidy. I probably could have left myself a little bit longer of a tail of yarn. I usually leave too much. Whoops. One thing you can do that I have done is you put your needle through and then weave in that last little bit. All right. There we go. So now our Chunky Bloom Infinity Scarf is complete and ready to attach. Well, first we need to make and then attach the bow. But I wanted you to see those colors close up. We've got the beautiful reddish color here that looks like the flowers. Here it's worked in with some green and red, and you've got purples and blues and purples and pinks, and it's just lovely. It's a beautiful yarn, and I love how that it's a self-striping floral print. This is the bow that we're going to crochet and add to our infinity scarf. It measures about 7 inches across, so it's the perfect size for our infinity scarf. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 20 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, I do recommend that you don't stitch this chain too tightly because you don't want the bottom of your bow to be bunching a little bit. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. We're going to stitch a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. So there's 1, 2, 3. So we began with our single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then we're single crocheting in each stitch across. And this is going to get us 19 single crochets. Two more. There's 1 and 2. All right, we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to be stitching it the same as we did on the cowl. Single crochet, chain 1, skip 1. The difference is we're going to be stitching in rows back and forth instead of around like we did on the cowl. Our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and so we're going to stitch our first stitch in the first back loop of the first stitch. So again, we're going to stitch in the back loop, stitch a single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1, skip 1, all the way across this row. Whoops. This plastic hook is definitely different than working with some of my aluminum metal hooks. Alrighty. We'll chain 1, skip 1, and then place our last stitch in the back loop of that last stitch and chain 1. We chained 1 and turn. And now we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. Single crochet in the back loop of the first stitch and chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the back loop, chain 1 and skip 1. And so what we're going to be doing is repeating row 2 for 3 more rows so that we have 3 rows of single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, working in the back loops only. So we're repeating row 2 3 more times. I have repeated row 2 3 more times. And now what we're going to do for our last row on our bow is stitch 1 single crochet in each of the stitches across like we did on the trim of our cowl. And we're going to just go right in the regular stitches, not the back loops. And again, if you'll follow that set of loops on the top, you'll make sure that you get 1 single crochet in each stitch because we don't want to add or subtract any stitches. Each row of our bow should have 19 stitches. I finished that last row, 1 single crochet in each of the stitches across. We'll cut our yarn and tie off. Now, before we do anything else, we need to weave in these ends. And I like to go towards the center when I'm doing a bow, and I sort of kind of whip back through like that a few times until it's secure. All right, then we'll do the other end real quick. And we'll do the same. We'll go in towards the center. And the reason I do that is we don't want any ends sticking out on the ends of our bow. Because sometimes when you weave things in, you go back and forth like this, you end up with that tail of yarn sticking out. So make sure you end coming back to the inside of the bow. There we go. All right, now we're going to turn our bow over, and we're going to cut a piece of yarn that's about 24 inches long. And what I do is I sort of measure it in half, and this is probably longer than 24 inches. Okay, I take this and I go around the bow, and this is just so I can cinch it in. I want to make sure that it's even in the center, and then I'll pull that nice and tight, and then I'll just start wrapping around to make a nice thick center of my bow. And that looks nice. So we'll go to the back. And of course you can wind it around as many times as you want to. All right, so I'm going to take it singly and go around. And then I'm going to go around here with that one. Now I'm going to take the other one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around, only I'm going to go this way, like that. And then I'll just tie this in a knot that's going to stay put. That way the center of our bow stays put. And you know I like to do 3 knots. All right, so there's our bow, and I like that this one has the blue and the purple where this one just has the blue. So the front of the cowl is the side that has the lines where we didn't stitch in the front post. But if you prefer the other side, that can be your front as well. It's really just preference. And what I like to do is I like to find the edge where I started and put that down at the bottom. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I want to attach my bow at an angle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it with these 2 strands of yarn. And all I do is I go underneath and I grab one of them, and then I'll go underneath farther over and I'll grab the other. All right, and that's just going to show where it's attached. I'll go in the back and I'll attach it with 3 knots. And then I always like to do that last little twisty knot so it can stay in place. All right, now that's cute and all, but we don't want the ends to be flopping around unless you don't mind. And so what we'll do is we'll just cut off a piece of yarn and we'll tack those sides down. All right, so I'm going to thread that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up from underneath and I'm just going to grab like this and pull that in. Just one through, just like that. And then I'll tie that down. And that's going to keep the edge of the bow against the cowl and keep it from flapping. Now you may not want to tack that down, and that's okay. I don't want the edges tacked down, but you can if you want to. I just want it to stay in place. Alright, so I'm going to grab the other end. And I want it at an angle like this, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to come up underneath and make sure when you stitch it on and when you tack it on, you go through stitches and not through the holes, because you want that to stay put. See, I'm going to go through that stitch. And the same thing, I'm just going to tie that on. Now I don't have to worry about my bow flip-flopping anywhere. It's going to stay put where I want it to be. And so that's how you make the Chunky Bloom cowl with this cute little bow. And it's one of those patterns where the yarn makes the pattern. But remember, any Chunky number 5 yarn can be used for this adorable pattern.